Let me preface this by saying I'm someone who considers themselves to be a liberal, but also not a Democrat. I was ardently opposed to the foreign policy of President Obama, particularly for taking us from 2 wars to seven, arming the Saudis in Yemen, being involved with many human right errors and just issues that I found myself thinking were continuations of George Bush. But I wanted to say that when Trump ran, even though I opposed him for the Muslim ban, the Muslim proposal, the proposal to ban Muslims, he was someone that had a lot of potential to be different. I heard someone that was anti-Iraq, um, called out the oligarchy, the corruption in Washington, so much so that he used the term "drain the swamp." And because he was someone who was from New York, a liberal area, I thought, and running as a Republican, I thought I could get a moderate who was maybe liberal on social issues, which are views that he had espoused prior to running. Suddenly he's anti-gay marriage and this big NRA buddy. But even then, I thought there was a chance we could finally get rid of this system of corruption and establishment nonsense. So when he gets in office, I have not high hopes, but I have a semblance of hope, far more than I would have if Hillary had won in his position or assumed the position. Now, we go into his first year. You have the pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement or the Paris Agreement. And that's really the initial visible nonsensical "what are you doing" thing he does. Now you had the Muslim the banning from the Muslim majority countries, and I'll put it to you this way: foreign invaders, in my position, in my view, or rather the threat of foreign invaders has been exploited so much by American presidents for the last 16 plus years. It was September 11th was, while an awful attack, was used to perpetuate the Afghanistan war, which is still ongoing, and get us horrible pieces of legislation such as the Patriot Act, which basically repealed the Fourth Amendment and was continued by President Obama and now Trump. So it really has been used. Threats themselves are not the problem, but more so the threat of the threat. The idea that we have to protect ourselves from terrorists because someone's going to come and do something to us. When in reality, we have more Americans killing other Americans than anything else. So it's nothing to be that worked up about. But going back to what I was saying, Paris Climate Agreement, you have the U.S. become one of three countries to not be in that agreement. And, it really fit the narrative of Trump's just here to undo everything Obama did. Because you have a person who wants me to believe, Trump, that out of all the scientists in the world, the smartest and the brightest are all here in the U.S. These are all the ones who know what's really going on. These are all the ones who are most sophisticated that can tell me how this is going to go. And I wouldn't buy it. I didn't think it could actually happen. That just everyone over here was smart. Everybody in all those other countries across the world was dumb. I didn't believe it. Now you had the threats with North Korea, and that was freaky. But I really liked his meeting with Kim Jong Un, and I defended that. I said, hey, look, I would rather him meet with him. I don't care who it is. This is better than escalating some potential nuclear war that's going to get loads and loads of people killed. And the same thing was true with his interactions with Putin. Sure, the Russians tried to interfere in the elections, but I would rather they try to have some semblance of a cordial interaction and then go into, confrontations about whether someone tried to mess with, how things were going. Which, by the way, we have Americans try to hack American elections all the time, so it's not even worth getting that upset about. But nonetheless, it was another thing that I defended him on, and I found myself in positions in this kind of strange, I call it the Twilight Zone era, where as someone who is opposed to pretty much everything Trump's done, I've had to defend him in cases where he's done things I would have preferred for him to do than the hawkish nonsense we've seen over the last 16 plus years. Now, to domestic issues, you have the attempt to repeal Obamacare, getting rid of the individual mandate. Obamacare is better than having loads of people be uninsured. I've said this before; it's got its problems, but whatever. Republican plan was going to take more people off of it. It was bad, and it was something that I didn't think Trump himself wanted to do, and it was just Republicans, in their conservative manifesto nonsense, trying to get him to back whatever, to make himself appear to be one of them, which I think would show a lack of leadership on his part to just kind of bend over to what they wanted. But even then, it was whatever. Now, going to the other aspects of his tenure, you have moving the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. Obviously, a move that it was that and the pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal where I knew Israel had Trump just in lock. They had him, and they've had the U.S., to be fair, in their pocket for a couple of decades now. Obama had his problems with Netanyahu and then gives them billions of dollars. Just that kind of nonsense. This whole thing that you can't criticize that country and in particular its government without being called anti-Semitic. That's ridiculous, and that does not start with Trump, but it also does not end with Trump. So it's more of the same that I find myself upset with him over, or at least his tenure. You had Pruitt at the EPA just dismantling things, just to dismantle things. It's a chaotic reign, and there are loads and loads of issues that are problematic. Obviously, the military spending increasing by $100 billion, and it's weird because while there's all these things going on, all these issues that are substantive, that should be addressed, that should be spoken about, whether you like them or disagree with them, they're completely overwritten by his tweets, the Mueller investigation, and Stormy. And I'm sitting here kind of confused. I'm saying to myself, wait a second, we have all these problems going on right now, and the most we can get the media to talk about, the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, whatever, is some porn star that he was with 10 years ago, along with some investigation that over a year later hasn't coughed up anything other than just putting random people in jail. It all felt pointless and weird to me that this would become the highlights of his tenure. Just this would be what most people are looking for, most people are thinking about. And I kind of distance myself from that same school of thought. So I just, all right, I'm gonna phase that stuff out, keep worrying about actual issues and things that are going on. He puts these tariffs on Canada out of nowhere, then gets surprised when they. So this is what gets me. He puts tariffs on Canada. They say, okay, we have to respond. We have to do something, and then they get called traitors by American, media figures, as though they just decided to strike out against us, like the first attack didn't happen. See, it's more of that parallel universe weird stuff going on that you don't get when you talk about most other politicians. But I will say that I've noticed a strange conundrum where it seems, because I try to play this stuff fairly, so I applaud Trump for not starting any more wars, but I criticize him for keeping up the 7 that we had under Obama, just as I criticized him for getting into 5 more. So it's this thing where fans of his, when you talk about him, they have this tendency to say, okay, well, this person, they're just some liberal Democrat that's trying to smear our guy. No, I'm upset with Trump for both continuing very horrid economic and foreign policies that Obama had in place, and moving us further back when it came to social policies. And that latter one saddened me more than anything else, because I know it's just the conservatives that are surrounding him, that are in office, who have chosen to act that way. You have Pence shouting things in his ear, oh, be anti-gay marriage, anti-abortion, whatever. Nominate these conservative right-wing judges that are going to repeal Roe versus Wade, so we have to go back to coat hangers. These are all things that I don't get upset with him for as much as I get upset with the people who are around him, even though it's his decision to make, and ultimately he's the one who pulls the lever on whether things go through. So I would give his tenure maybe 3 out of 10. And to give you an idea of what Obama's would be like, picture a 4 or 5. These are people who in office have enriched themselves as Trump did. He got millions of dollars from the NRA and have been able to trick a lot of individuals who are good-hearted, decent people into thinking this is someone who cares about you. This is someone that you need to look up to and respect and think is actually doing things that are in favor of you. And so when I have these people who, call themselves being his backers, I merely wish that they tried to understand this is not some partisan attack on Trump. It's just me being tired of the same old, same old. Trump has been establishment in every sense of the word. And it kills me that one of the few decent things about him running was that he wasn't. So it's more of the campaigning like a populist, getting in office and doing the establishment thing that we had under Obama, and it's being continued now. You're going back in social issues while having the foreign ones be continued, all the bad ones anyway. Because neocons like Bolton are over there whispering in his ear, go to war with this place, have a conflict with there, do this over here, and no one's the wiser, because the media is paid out by these defense contractors to not speak about the ways in which the U.S. is going about being the world's leading terrorist entity, at least the American government. So it was really a wasted opportunity. I think that he still has a chance of winning re-election if the Democrats are retarded and rig their primary again. Um, it's it's unfortunate. We keep trying to make sense of the fact that you have this oligarchy that backs both parties, and having a guy who comes out and says yes, both parties are doing this. Just for him to get in office and do the same thing, and then have the same people say, yes, this is a great person who we need to respect and think highly of. The good things that I have seen from him are few, far, and in between, as was Obama. Um, so it's sad.